Today on The Report, we will discuss New York Mayor Eric Adams dropping his re-election campaign,
the federal government shutting down and the incoming fallout,
Oregon suing Trump's administration over development of the National Guard,
and we will take a look at ChatGPT's new parental controls.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams recently ended his re-election campaign. He says media scrutiny, fundraising challenges, and a dismissed federal corruption case undermined his ability to run. Adams does not endorse any candidate, but says he will continue public service after his term ends in December. The mayoral race features Democrat Zohran Mamdani, former Governor Andrew Cuomo running as an independent, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. Adams' name will remain on the ballot because it is now too late to remove it. So how do you guys feel about this? I was super surprised when I woke up and found out about the news.
I thought it was pretty conflicting, honestly, because he had spoken to the media and was very adamant to the media about the fact that he is running in this race. He was pestered about it by the media for the longest time. He was very like, guys, no, like, I will be running. And then all of a sudden he kind of dropped out. But I guess the implications were there beforehand, but definitely pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think what he said, even after, though he may not be, running anymore, he still wants to be part of. He still wants to help in different aspects, whether to be in any services besides being a mayor for that. But I think when I wanted to quote what he said in his statement, that he urged New Yorkers to choose leaders not by what they promised, but by what they have delivered. And I think that's, despite whatever things he's done, I think it's sort of a statement that holds true to itself, minus what he said, who he is as a person. But I think in that terms, it brings a kind of a interesting food for thought up into discussion of how he approached it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I will say it was a bit surprising, but obviously having faced pushback and things like that, whether that be through media criticism and things like that. Yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, just showcasing that support, regardless, for other candidates.
I think it is pretty conflicting, even in the fact that he took a shot at Zohran Mamdani. He said, quote, "Because of this, or beware of those who claim the answer is to destroy the very system we built together over generations." And I think it's a little bit interesting that you're dropping yourself out of this race as you're speaking of someone like this, and it's just very conflicting.
Yeah, I think the thing that confused me the most, and I saw a lot of people talking about this online, was the fact that his name can't be removed from the ballot. So I'm thinking about all of the New Yorkers who, may not even know that he dropped out or may not be completely up to date on the information, and, people who don't want to vote for Zohrani or Cuomo or Sliwa and were planning on voting for Adams. And I think there are still people that do plan on voting for him, just from pure just loyalty, and I think that him dropping out this late in the race is so irresponsible after, like you said, just a month ago he was telling everyone that he was planning on running and planning on staying in the race. So yeah, I'm really interested to see sort of how the votes split and just, how things go after the election in New York.
The federal government was officially shut down on Tuesday evening. As of right now, no one in the Capitol has an idea of what will happen next. The decision was finalized after a conflicted battle between Republicans and Democrats over Obamacare, subsides that resulted in a deadlock. Republicans wanted Democrats to continue funding for another 7 weeks, but Democrats refused without requiring significant compromises in exchange for their votes in order to help the Senate pass any budget measure. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer now has a lot of pressure on his back to keep his Democratic members from surrendering to the GOP pressure campaign to agree on the 7-week funding bill and to renegotiate again on the Obamacare subsidies. Guys, obviously, this is our first official government shutdown since 2019, a very conflicting one. My question for you guys is, how long do you think this will last, and how much pressure is Chuck Schumer currently under right now?
I'll start with how long I think it's going to last. The last government shutdown that we had that was pretty major, like you said, in 2019, it lasted for a month. And I think that's something that's really interesting that people are talking about is this whole thing. We're in this kind of season of Trump trying to defund, national programs and things like that. And I find that this sort of is kind of the impetus for that. It's kind of setting the stage for being able to defund, being able to stop funding, being able to pause things. And I just think that it could go either way. It could, I don't think the Democrats should give in. I think there is a lot of blame that's going around that I just think is completely unfounded. So I don't know how long it'll last, but I don't see it being an easy fight.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think based on past shutdowns and also just with the state of the country that we're in right now, and like you mentioned with Trump, as well as just like him sticking to his stance and often fighting till the end per se, I think it's just very hard to tell right now. And again, it's going to be a tough fight because, again, we've had this shutdown before, and yeah, so we will see.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, especially with the shutdown, obviously, I also don't know how long it may take, but I do know that it would definitely cause a lot of effect for people's jobs and their like sort of security in terms of like how, what sort of direction we'll take from here on out. Obviously, this happened before, but I feel like with now things are kind of different in terms of like now that who's in the sort of the spearhead of the whole government operations and sort of like a defunding kind of like you said. But really, I think it's sort of a interesting take on how we'll sort of see things will, I guess, flow. But like you all, I'm also as uncertain. But I don't think it'll take as longer than what last time, like what, a month or something. Yeah.
And you brought up a good point, and I want to go back to that, is that the weight in which this shutdown holds, because you have federal workers that can go unpaid and things that, like delays in essential services and things like that, again, that can and most likely will happen because of this shutdown, especially depending on how long it drags out. And so, yeah, I think it's just important to recognize the weight in which this holds, and again, just recognizing that this is a pretty big deal, and that hopefully moving forward, like you said, it won't last more than a month like last time as well.
I think something else that's really important and that I appreciate, I don't know if you guys saw on Instagram, but CSUF Financial Aid, they made a post letting us know that our financial aid won't be affected by the government shutdown. And I've been doing some research, and there are some things that won't be affected, like our financial aid. I know there are some like veteran services that aren't affected as well. So hopefully, I'm hoping that it won't last too long and that we won't start to kind of lose out on the things that we rely on as Americans.
Definitely.
In response to 200 National Guards troops being sent to a Portland ICE facility, the state of Oregon has filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth authorized the order to send 200 National Guards to the Portland ICE facility in case of potential protests occurring. The state argues that Trump doesn't have the right to federalize the National Guard, and sending this many troops to protect one building is incredibly excessive. Attorney General Dan Rayfield stated, quote, "What we're seeing is not about public safety. It's about the president flexing political muscle under the guise of law and order, chasing a media hit at the expense of our community," end quote. So yeah, guys, with this, I think I want to ask, do you guys think Trump will either litigate this settlement or probably leave it up into court? Or like maybe is this sort of like a sort of a message that he's trying to like say, considering how this also happened in LA recently as well, What do you guys think?
I'll go first. I really love that quote about him flexing political muscle, because I'm from LA, so I live in Koreatown. I was super close to downtown when everything was going on, and I also work at the Century City Mall, which is close to the federal building on Wilshire. And I think that it's just, there really is nothing too bad. Like, there's nothing crazy going on. Like, of course, like every city has its crime, there's things like that. But I do find this to just be like a gross misuse of power. And I think that there are just so many other things that we could be talking about, so many other things that we could be legislating about. But instead we're, shutting down federal buildings, and we're sending people, paying people essentially to, guard a building that really is not that important. I think it's just echoing what happened here in LA. And we saw how LA responded when that happened. So I'm really interested to see what goes on there and how they respond to this.
Yeah, for sure. And adding on to that, I think, once again, this is just a political move by Trump. It's a a political move to, again, showcase that power and dominance per se. And yeah, he definitely doesn't back down. And so all that being said, again, I think this is just something that, like, there are a plethora of other things that we could be worrying about right now. And this is just not something that I believe should be taking priority. But yeah.
I completely agree with the both of you. And one thing I really wanted to emphasize was that these are potential protests, not even confirmed. And obviously we're talking about one singular building and 200 people to guard it. I just think it's outrageous. I mean, you mentioned the flexing the political muscle. It's just not good at all. Also, Pete Hegseth, who you mentioned, he once was barred from serving on duty at the inauguration of Joe Biden because of being an insider threat. And now you have him deploying 200 plus, and it's just not so good.
No, definitely, yeah. I think, like what you all said, it's sort of kind of like him posing himself, again, back to the political muscle. But I think with this, it seems excessive. Like, and it's definitely, I think what he said was like, this wasn't even a sense of, he was only doing it for like a media hit, but at the expense of the community there, it seems like kind of like a sort of not even as, what's the word? Like interest. It wasn't in the interest of what the people would share with, you know? And definitely with sending like 200 national troops over there just for one building, like you said, it seems like it's only not really trying to do anything, any benefit for the people or even for government, just a increased sort of security on a potential risk that might or might not even be possible. But,
ChatGPT will now be having new parental controls to help protect teenagers when using the program. The announcement came from ChatGPT's creator, OpenAI, after constant public pressure to prioritize teenage safety. The new controls would allow parents to link their ChatGPT accounts to their teenagers. The parental controls would also allow parents to receive notifications from OpenAI if there are potential signs of their child expressing self-harm while communicating with ChatGPT. OpenAI also expressed how they will, quote, continue to thoughtfully iterate and improve over time and recommend parents to talk with their teens about healthy AI use and what that looks like for their family, end quote. All right, guys, so how do you all feel regarding the confidence in which these new parental controls will take? So I guess, if you were, for example, a parent, how much confidence would you have in these controls actually working, for your child?
Yeah, I think it's a good step in the right direction. I think we definitely are entering and kind of already have been in an age where just the internet in general is not safe for children or teenagers at all. And I think that we've seen things in the media about AI and just the limits that or just the depths that AI can go to and just kind of how a conversation with these chatbots can kind of evolve into something bigger. And I think that it is a good step in the right direction, but as someone who was once a child, I'm not sure how easy it'll be to kind of like, to, put it in play. I think that teenagers especially are really good at getting around things. And yeah, I do think it's a good step in the right direction. I'm not sure how easily it'll be enforced.
I kind of want to piggyback on what you were saying of teenagers finding a way around things, because I feel like they can always find a loophole, especially when it comes to the internet, and it's not, like you mentioned, like it's not the prettiest thing. I almost feel as if it's obviously important, but it almost makes you think, like, would this be better than possibly like putting an age limit on ChatGPT, or like per se, like, oh, you have to be like 16 or 18 and up. But it definitely is interesting, and obviously I think it's a pretty decent step forward, because obviously like ChatGPT and AI has taken off in quite an outstanding way. So.
Yeah, I mean, definitely adding on to you said, I think in short terms, this was the right step ahead, but in terms of like longevity, I'm not so entirely sure, mainly because like you said, people could always just like find alternatives to these things, like maybe, but, and also I kind of want to bring into the sphere that the reason why children like now even use ChatGPT, like they've been like kind of using it as a companion instead of like a tool for for school or anything, and rather like it's sort of like meant as like a buddy to talk about sharing feelings and thoughts, and apparently even to the point of like asking ChatGPT, should I off myself, and that's where I think that's where we need to sort of draw the line. And I think it's a good step what ChatGPT and OpenAI is asking parents to like have a healthy conversation with their child about the line between using it as a tool instead of using it as a companion and having these like deeper conversations about these things. And I think that's really important as well. And I think that's what OpenAI is definitely using their platform to sort of spread that message in a good positive light about it.
Yeah, definitely. You all brought up really great points. I think I'm going to kind of go one by one. So you mentioned like limitless or depth, I guess. And I was going to add on to that and say that AI and just ChatGPT and similar platforms have become limitless in a sense. Same with like the internet, same with all of that. There's definitely a lot of freedom per se. And so again, like you all mentioned, in a sense that having this step towards the right direction and having a sort of parental control. Again, there definitely are ways around it for sure, whether that's teenagers finding a way around it within ChatGPT itself or using other AI platforms, obviously. That being said too, like I think we all, grew up in an age where technology has just rapidly been growing and changing and evolving. And all that being said, like I didn't grow up with AI or ChatGPT or any of these sort of platforms. Yes, we had the internet and things that were easily accessible in a sense, but it was much different back then. And so I just can only imagine what it's like to grow up as young as like kindergarten all the way through, high school, more so probably, middle school, high school, and just having that access now and how that might affect various things, whether it's access to things that young children and teenagers shouldn't be accessing, or well as like cheating themselves of their education because they're just using it to get their work done and things like that. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about this for sure.
On October 2nd, the Turning Point USA of CSUF Club on campus hosted their Speak Their Mind event with guest speaker Ray Comfort. Our reporter Litzy Aguilar has more on the story.
I'm Litzy Aguilar for The Report, and today Turning Point USA of CSUF is hosting an event called Speak Your Mind with speaker Ray Comfort, offering a space for students to exercise their freedom of speech.
That's our goal as an organization. We want conversation to be the culture here on campus. We want, whether you agree with us, disagree with us, we want to be able to have a conversation. So if a student has a question and we're like, well, let's answer it, that's beautiful because that's what we want. Whether the student agrees with our conservative beliefs or not, that's totally fine. That's the whole point of growing ideas. That's the whole point of a university. That's the whole point of being here, is to bounce our ideas off of each other, to grow in knowledge, to grow in knowing one another. Because as soon as we stop having a conversation, we start assuming. And as soon as we start assuming, then it gets dangerous.
I mean, a college is like, we get to exchange our ideas, we get to learn different point of views, we get to like open our mind to all of these different kinds of like ideas, and I think this is like a great example of that.
I really like that it's free to just have different opinions and have different speakers, and that's what I think college should be.
What this event really means to me is, I believe in freedom of speech, so I think those people do deserve to, whether you may agree with it or not, I do believe these people deserve to at least, say what's on their mind, and vice versa, whoever doesn't agree. And to be honest, I mean, my class is just over there, so I kind of just came up and seeing what was going on. I didn't really know what was going on. Someone just had to explain it to me. It's an unfortunate event what happened in Utah, whether you say whatever you may think, it's still, human life. So at the end of the day, I do believe that people should be able to go wherever they want to use their freedom of speech.
Yeah, a lot of people are angry. I don't know. Anything could happen because it's a public campus. I mean, it's not like we have police, but, they're not all around. And then, anybody could get angry. Something bad could happen. So I wouldn't recommend doing it, but people could speak their minds too.
Free speech is like a good thing, obviously. Everyone should be able to say their own mind. However, their free speech is definitely putting other people down. It's not allowing others to speak. This guy is Australian in America, so it's really like she doesn't even go here from Mean Girls. Like, who is this man? But also, he has interrupted many people multiple times. So his free speech act is really just him trying to get his point across and put other people down, which I do not believe is the right way to go.
I felt like it was important to go talk to him because my question was pretty thought out. Like the weaponization of the Bible, I feel like it's been shown through history and it is continuing to happen. Like with Charlie Kirk, I respect Charlie Kirk, but I don't respect his ideology and his views and things like this, and how he would go to colleges like this and spread his ideology on young people, young impressionable people. And I didn't really appreciate our talk, especially considering that he has a crowd and he's the one facing the crowd. So I felt like it's a little biased towards him. You have somebody that only wants to talk about their point of view and doesn't really feel like going back and forth in a respectful and educated manner.
There were a lot of perspectives given at today's event. I'm Litzy Aguilar for the report. Back to you guys.
So guys, I was here on campus yesterday. I know, Sergio, you were as well. Do you guys have any thoughts about how that went? Any experiences you guys may have had?
There is a lot I could say about this. I was on campus as well, and I think with everything that's been going on politically, as well as like in recent events pertaining to Turning Point and Charlie Kirk, I think that it was definitely an interesting choice and move to have them be present on campus. And I personally believe that is not a smart nor safe move, just because, again, in light of recent events, Charlie's assassination, I just think having such a strong, political group per se, sharing their very strong and loud opinions, I just think, again, it raises concern and safety for students on campus. I know for myself, I was concerned, like, I hope nothing happens. I wish for nothing to happen, of course. But again, you never know. People have various opinions and thoughts and perspectives. And just all that being said, it's just like you never know what could happen. And so there's a lot more I want to say on this. But just all that being said, I just think it wasn't the greatest move to have them on campus. And I'm also a little shocked per se. I understand, freedom of speech, of course, but I guess I'm a little shocked with especially how diverse and open and inclusive our campus is, and that's something that I really appreciate and almost pride myself on for being a part of a campus culture per se that's very inclusive and very welcoming, which obviously includes Turning Point as well. But that being said, I think when you're sharing and spewing often hateful ideologies and beliefs that are discriminatory and all these things towards various groups of people and just hate speech and all that, I just find it interesting that our campus would allow something like that, especially when it could jeopardize the safety and well-being of a lot of our students on campus.
I think you touched on it earlier of just like our climate of the world is in a very interesting spot right now. And obviously with the recent events of Charlie Kirk and all, like it's just essentially concerning that you mentioned, like we have that on campus. Me, myself, I went and I went out with my camera, my lens, I took some photos of the event. Being up front and center, I was just about like 10, 15 away from Ray, and it was just odd. Like I was telling like my roommates and everything, like it felt so eerie being directly in that spot, seeing such a huge crowd, so many MAGA hats, and just for once I feel maybe the only time in my life where I've ever felt like, damn, like I feel susceptible to like possible danger. And then obviously just the crowd in itself and what was going on and like spoken about was just very, very out of place for Cal State Fullerton, obviously. Yeah. I mean, like we've seen that a bunch like on TikTok or whatever, just like on our phones, and seeing that directly in front of me was very interesting. And we had mentioned it earlier, but Ray himself, he was dismissing some people of speaking because they weren't unopposing. And that in itself I thought was very interesting. And the conversations that he was bringing up, I felt like I wasn't surprised. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I mean, I think jumping off what you said about that, I felt like when he was, when people, any of all like different backgrounds wanted to sort of have a debate or conversation with him, he would only allow certain ones who were having different like beliefs from him and those who he shared with, he just dismissed them off. So and I felt like that event felt more like a gimmick in a way. I personally, I was only there. I was in class in like the first half of it. So but when I came out, obviously the entire humanities side of this campus was definitely very like packed. It's funny. I saw the Lorax guy there too. It was kind of like funny how like the duality of our campus has like that same like, duality, I guess. But anyways, what matters was like I think with that it brings sort of like an interesting sort of like intention of what they were trying to accomplish with having their that event happening here. But in terms of what you were saying, why he was dismissing like those who he shared with and those who he had opposing beliefs with, it didn't feel genuine to me. It didn't feel authentic, and it felt like it didn't really help anyone rather than sort of just bring like a media hit, I guess, the best way to put it. And also, yeah, for the safety, considering the safety of like our well-being of our students as well, especially after those recent events of Charlie Kirk, it really brings sort of like a stir in the pot to sort of see like what can happen next, and hopefully, I mean, I'm glad nothing serious happened, but I've heard like there were like helicopters, like people up on the roof, keeping like patrol tabs on anything, because obviously with what happened in Utah, the stakes are higher, security obviously goes up higher as well.
One thing I want to note really quick was when I was there, I did notice a lot of people glancing up at the humanities building, because the first few floors, there is no net or like barriers. So there was a lot of people up there watching like just an elevated view, and obviously I saw Trump supporters up there as well. But I did notice throughout the event, people were like looking up and just like being very cautious of their surroundings.
Yeah, it was definitely, I think I will say disappointing is the word. I'm all about free speech. I think our First Amendment is the best thing that we have. I totally respect their right, especially as we have a chapter on campus. I think it's totally within their right to come here and speak on campus. But I think that there should be speaking. And I think that the beliefs and ideologies, I didn't hear any. All I saw was arguing with people, and there was so much sort of like bastardization of the Bible. And I think that there was a lot of talk and a lot of discussion and a lot of sort of propaganda. And I even said when I was walking through there, I was interviewing people, I was talking to people, getting everyone's opinions. And even I had said that I felt like I was being indoctrinated because it didn't feel like a healthy space for conversation. It didn't feel like, an area for free speech like all the signs said. It felt like, you enter this space and you're going to be talked down to. You're going to be told that your beliefs and your feelings aren't valid and that this is the way. And I just think that's incredibly dishonest to do on a college campus where we're supposed to exchange ideas and we're supposed to talk to each other. And it's not just supposed to be a one-sided belief of things. They were giving out so much literature and pamphlets. I got this $53 bill that had Trump's face on it. And I went up to the girl who was handing them out. She was wearing a defund Planned Parenthood shirt. She was standing next to all of the anti-abortion signs. And I asked her like, hey, like, could you explain the front and the back to me? Why does this resonate with you? Why are you here handing them out? And she couldn't even answer me. And I was like, is this where we are, like, in society? Like, we're here on a college campus, we're handing out literature, we're handing out anti-abortion pamphlets, and we can't even stand on business, and we can't even, like, say how these things, reconcile these things with ourselves, essentially. And I just think that it was really interesting timing. I'm really interested to kind of see how Turning Point kind of moves forward on their tour and everything, because yesterday was very interesting. Yeah. And that wraps up with our recent news of today.
Make sure to stay tuned for more news, views, and info.
Don't forget to follow at Titan TV CSUF on Instagram to stay updated with their weekly episodes.
We'll see you on the next episode of The Report.